OMG. Hi, guys. It's Mrs. Klein.
Yay, it's you. It's Mrs. Wilbren.
We are here today, you guys, with a podcast that goes along with Lesson 8, Creating the Constitution. In our last unit, you guys remember we learned about issues that the United States faced after winning the Revolutionary War. And in this lesson, we're going to learn about the early years of the United States.
And your guiding question, what compromises emerged from the Constitutional Convention? We also have some vocabulary that we want you to listen for. We have Articles of Confederation, Northwest Ordinance, Northwest Territory, Republic, Land Ordinance of 1785, and Shays Rebellion.
All right, right on. All right, here you go. Here we go, you guys. All right, so in 1755, Daniel Boone and 30 others helped build something that was called the Wilderness Road. This road ran westward over the Appalachian Mountains into Kentucky. Now that we've won, we don't have to worry about not being able to move into that area, right?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Settlers traveled the road on foot and on horseback. Well, actually, that happened before the war. So we know that people definitely ignored the proclamation of 1783.
Yeah. And 1775. I think you said 1755.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. 1775, you guys. Yeah.
Some Native Americans hunted, fished, and lived in the Kentucky region. The movement of the settlers there led to violence between the Native Americans and the settlers, but the settlers continued coming. By 1790, about 100,000 Americans lived there.
Dang. Okay. All right. That's definitely a lot of people moving into that territory. After the colonies became independent, each state set out to create its own government. Some states created governments with separate branches. Some included a Bill of Rights as a part of their constitution. All the states set up republican forms of government. And in a republic, people choose representatives to govern them.
And that's what we have.
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to talk about the Articles of Confederation next. In 1776, the Continental Congress met to set up a national government. They agreed on a plan called the Articles of Confederation. It gave much power to the states and little power to the national government. The government was run by a Confederation Congress. Each state had one vote in the Congress.
It kind of makes sense that they didn't want to have a big, strong central government after having just beaten a big, strong central government in the war.
Exactly.
All right, under the Articles, most important powers were left to the states. For example, the states had the power to tax. The states were also left in control of the Western lands.
Mm-hmm. In 1778, 8 states had ratified the Articles. But some of the small states that did not have Western lands refused to sign. They felt that states that had Western lands would have an advantage. But by 1781, all of the states had given up the Western claims and accepted the Articles. The United States then had an official government.
All right, right on. So the Articles is basically like the rule book, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Now, we got to find out a little bit about the Northwest Ordinance. One of the most important questions facing the Confederation Congress was what to do with the Western lands. So Congress passed laws on how to divide up and govern these lands. The Land Ordinance of 1785 staked out 6-mile square plots called townships. These lands later became the Northwest Territory. It included that formed of Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, and part of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. The Northwest Ordinance described how the Northwest Territory was to be governed. It outlined when the territories could govern themselves. It also established settlers' rights. This law was important because it set a pattern for the orderly growth of the United States. This was like the only success of the Articles of Confederation.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So now here's the deal. Mrs. Wilbren just alluded to the fact that Articles of Confederation were kind of weak. So now we're going to find out a little bit about their weaknesses. So the Confederation Congress had few successes other than the Northwest Ordinance. The new nation faced problems that the Congress did not have the power to solve.
One problem was debt.
Mm-hmm.
The Congress had borrowed large amounts of money during the Revolutionary War. Much of the money was owed to soldiers of its own army. Even if the Congress wanted to pay the soldiers, it did not have the power to levy taxes. It depended on the states to send money, but the states had very little money to send to Congress.
Yeah, and it would be like they asked, hey, do you think you guys could send us a little bit of money? And they were saying, no, we're not going to send you a little bit of money. No. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. This ends up another pretty dire situation that lets us realize a real weakness of the Articles of Confederation happens, and it's this thing that's called Shays Rebellion. All right. People throughout the nation faced hard times. In Massachusetts, farmers fell deeply into debt. Taxes in Massachusetts were very high. Those who could not pay their debts for their land, those who could not pay their debts lost their land or they were jailed.
Yeah. In 1781, farmers in Massachusetts.
1787.
Oh,
My bad.
thank you.
No worries. We got it. Yep.
Farmers in Massachusetts held a tax protest. They asked the state legislature for relief from their debts. The legislature refused. The farmers rebelled, led by Daniel Shays. This rebellion became known as Shays' Rebellion. The Massachusetts militia killed 4 protesters. Although the protesters were defeated, the protest won the sympathy of many Americans. Many people felt that the nation needed to have a stronger national government to help solve its problems.
You guys, one other thing about Shays' Rebellion or at this time, is if you were going to be somebody who voted, you had to own property.
Yep.
And if you ended up having to sell your property to pay off your debt, then you were propertyless, and then you gave up your right to vote. You didn't have a say in things.
Yeah.
All right, which was definitely not where people, most especially in the colony of Massachusetts, I think wanted to wind up.
Exactly. Okay, well, that's it for this podcast, and we'll talk soon.
All right, you guys, all the best.